And here we have the prereqs here, poli-sci 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Which one of these did you take when you were studying?
Yeah, so it's a pretty light prerequisite overall. There's 6 different classes you can choose from,
Uh-huh.
and each of them is meant to give you a perspective of what that concentration will be like.
Got it, got
So
it.
the 10 series correlates roughly, I think, to the 110 series
Uh-huh.
upper divs, which you'll actually do in the major that
Got
are
it, got
focused
it.
on political theory. So you need to do 4 of the 6 different prereqs. I think I did 10, 30, 40, and 50.
Okay, okay.
Each around a different concentration, different
Got it.
field.
So poli-sci 10, you took that your first quarter. What was that
Yeah,
about? Intro to political theory.
yeah. Poli Sci 10 was my first one. It's
Yeah.
political theory is like wasn't my favorite. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was an interesting class, but
Yeah.
very dense reading. A lot of old Aristotle and Plato and the foundations
Mm.
of modern, where politics comes from.
Yeah.
And I guess I mean, it's good to be able to take that because you kind of understand what the classes will be like if you
Yeah.
end up taking them in the concentration.
Poli-sci 50, Intro to Comparative Politics. Um, what
Yeah.
what was that like? What was comparative politics?
Yeah, so comparative politics is basically comparing different political systems,
Okay.
which is interesting to learn. For example, you'll compare like the American presidential system to
Mm,
parliamentary systems
got it, got it.
in Europe. And that becomes a basis again for a whole series of upper
Yeah.
division classes.
Is that comparing within history or just like current times in different countries,
Yeah,
international
I think
politics?
there's a bit of history, but for the most part, it's just understanding how these systems work, what makes
Mm,
them different, what are the pros and cons of
got it, got it.
one system versus the other.
Hmm.
It gives you like a lot of perspective on why the American system like is set up the way it is and
Got it.
how incredible it is that it's survived this long. Actually,
Yeah. And do you feel overall these lower divs help you decide which line of politics you want to study more of?
I think they're important to do that, and and they should be used to do that.
Yeah.
With that said, when you do take the upper divisions, like you need to take a wide variety, and you'll need to take classes from every sector.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
even if you didn't love political theory, you're gonna have to take a political
The
theory upper
others,
div
other
at some
stuff.
point. Yeah,
Got it, got it. There's about two more prereqs you have to take, right? And you took
yeah,
them sophomore year,
yeah. I took 30 and 40 my sophomore year. I think 30 is game theory,
30 is
which
game
was,
theory.
I
This,
mean,
yeah.
it really shows you the variety of classes you can take in this major because it's just
Uh-huh.
so different than political theory, for example. It's more mathematical. It's more logical thinking and learning strategy
Yeah.
versus reading classical theory.
Class, yeah.
It's so different.
How would you explain what game theory is for people who haven't heard of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think about Prisoner's Dilemma, for example, is like the main like the most basic I think form of game theory that you learn is
Hmm.
how do leaders make decisions, and that's kind of the foundation of game theory when it comes to politics.
How they make
Is
decisions.
yeah, is learning who the opponents are and what they're trying to accomplish, right, and how
Okay,
to
okay.
strategically win.
Got it,
And
got
that
it,
could
got
be
it.
winning elections, or it could be passing initiatives or measures.
Yeah.
It could be a number of
Or like trade decisions or what's
right,
beneficial for
right.
your country.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah. So it actually gets applied pretty broadly in the other divisions or the other specializations of the major.
Got it, got it.
Yeah.
And what was the last one you took? Poli-sci 40,
Yeah, poli sci 40 is American politics.
American
Is much more
politics.
what you would expect from if you did
Yeah,
AP U.S. history
yeah,
in
yeah.
high school. Like it's more similar to that, how our system works and what the historical backings of our system are.
Got it, got it. And it's more applicable, huh? Because you see it in action.
A little bit, but it's definitely the one that I probably knew the most about coming in to college with.
And so all these political science classes and lower divs, what did you think of them as a whole? Like, did you like them? Were they helpful? The
Yeah,
upper
yeah.
divs?
I think they're all interesting, but they're trying to give you a taste of that concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're much broader in focus than you'll get in the electives.
Okay,
The electives are going to be a very specific topic instead of
I
introduction to
see.
political theory broadly. It will be one one person that you'll be learning about,
Yeah, very
right? And
specific
their
target
theory,
topic.
yeah, yeah, which can be good and bad. But it
Yeah.
does. I think if you pick topics that are interesting, it can make it more unique of an experience, and you definitely get closer to the professor's research because their academics is so focused. It's not broad when they do research.
Which concentration did you pick?
Yeah, I think it's actually hard to remember. I think I did comparative politics, but I laugh because it doesn't actually matter that much which division you choose or which concentration you choose. I switched it a number of times.
Oh, I see.
And that's because I think, of the 10 classes you need to take as electives, only 3 of them have to be from that concentration.
Okay.
So you'll be taking classes in a wide spectrum of areas.
Okay, so let's talk about your operative courses. 167, Political Economy of Development. Do you remember much?
Yeah, I took 2 classes with Professor Posner. I think he's pretty well known actually in this field. A lot of it is this was I think was a mixed class with International Development Studies, IDS, but it was this particular class, and I think his field of study is about international development as it connects to politics and political leadership.
Got it.
And so a lot of this class was learning about political systems in other countries and how they affect the people living there and the economies there, how you can stimulate growth. There's a big debate in politics about democracy and growth and whether you need democracy to have a wealthy country, to have a country that has strong growth year over year. And I think that debate is actually the big premise for 167 and a lot of other classes in the field of international development.
So in that class, was it a lot of discussion and debates?
There was some discussion. I think, I mean, he's obviously done a lot of research in that area. You get to write a paper or 2 about it, but it was, you really get to see a case study of many different countries, how they operate, what the leaders are like there, and how that may or may not affect the economies there and how the people live. Yeah.
So it's a lot of studying international politics.
Yeah. This is a really cool class, and I think it was breaking down. I think there's a common, I wouldn't say it's a myth, but a lot of people believe you need to have a democratic state in order to have a growing, strong economy. And we looked at why that is and why people believe that, first of all, and second of all, whether or not we think that's true. But as with anything you study, correlation and causation are 2 very different things. And so we looked a lot at, for example, the Middle East. These are really wealthy, some of them are really wealthy countries that don't have democracies. And why is it then that they're able to have so much economic activity? And a lot of it in those cases has to do with natural resources. So that was one explanatory factor. We connected it all the way then back to what does democracy do for the people? Right? How does it affect how people live and how people build businesses, right? And to try and really understand if this is a foundational or true fact, or whether it's kind of just a belief. So
right now it's still up for debate, right? There's no theory that democracy is better for economic growth or vice versa. It's still up in the air.
Yeah, I think the conclusion we came to was if you put all the countries on a chart, of economic growth, and you compare democracies and non-democracies, with democracies they are more clustered around wealth and economic growth. But with other forms of government, there are many countries that do have economic growth. But it's on average, it's much more spread out.
Less likely,
It's less likely.
And the next one, Poli-Sci 142A, political parties.
Yeah, so this is with Professor Zoller. This was a really interesting, I think more relevant class to what I know going on in politics. It's not to say the others are not interesting, but this I think was really useful to understand what's going on in our country. And we learned a lot about how people associate with parties, and having an understanding of that really informs your understanding of why certain things are happening in our country and why certain people are in power or make the decisions that they make. And it's not as much what you think, which is based on the views they have and the issues that they want to bring up. But there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of psychology involved with how people associate with parties and make decisions. We learned a lot about people's moral values and how they determine their political party association, and how the way you're raised and what your parents tell you growing up affects how you think, even though you might say it has to do with issues or your beliefs on certain topics. It more so has to do with values.
Yeah, your upbringing, your background, and
we learned some really like interesting things. For example, if you have people wash their hands before asking them what political party they associate with, they're more likely to say Republican.
What?
It's super crazy.
Is there
There's some weird stuff like that. Yeah, of how there's a lot that goes into how people associate with parties and make political decisions. But I think the reason for that one has to do with values, and washing your hands connects to cleanliness, which somehow, I don't know, there's different values. The different parties hold up different values, right? And those can be embodied in the way that we live and act.
Any other memorable classes?
I think the psychology ones, like in particular, had a lot of interesting things that you wouldn't really expect. For example, we learned about when you poll people and ask them their opinions, a lot of times people will just repeat back the last thing they heard without even realizing it. And people don't necessarily have systematic thoughts on topics that are far removed from them. So in particular, foreign policy, and to be even more relevant to today, immigration. For most people, immigration is not an issue that they think about every day, that they encounter in their lives. And so when they see on TV that someone has made a statement about this is what immigration is doing or not doing,
and then it'll just register.
It can strongly inform their opinion versus something that they do experience every day, like healthcare. A very different topic.
There's a lot of psychology that goes into political science because you're figuring out how people work, right?
And that's why actually the last class with Zoller was so interesting, because we read this book about how most people don't actually have strong beliefs per se, and they make decisions subconsciously without even realizing, and then they rationalize those decisions. And they don't even notice they do this, but they say, for example, I believe X about immigration because, and they give some reasons, when in fact those reasons are not the real cause of them feeling that way about immigration. There's many other factors, maybe their values, maybe how they're raised, a million other things. But that is really important to understand, because it makes you realize, okay, changing how they think about those reasons is probably not going to change how they feel about this issue.
So a lot of people would already have their strong-held beliefs from their background.
Right. And if you don't understand the underlying cause of why people feel a certain way, how are you going to change things?
And you're not going to be able to affect them.
Right.
Got it.